welcome back to the show, Ray.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Let's talk about this deal. Certainly unusual, unprecedented, lots of adjectives going on around here about that deal. Details are still being ironed out, as we mentioned, but how could this potentially work out? We're in this uncharted territory here.
We are, and it sounds like both Jensen Huang, as well the CEO of Nvidia, as well as Lisa Su at AMD, pled a case saying that it would be useful for the U.S. to be able to export its chips to China, as China's looking for inference chips, whether it's the H2O chip or the MI308 from AMD. Each one of these are designed to solve a problem that the Chinese chip manufacturers cannot solve. But what was more interesting and what makes this a very bizarre case is the fact that the Chinese government is saying, please don't use these chips. There might be some issues, there might be some security concerns. So on one hand, the U.S. is opening up the capability for export. On the other hand, China is slowing demand by saying, please don't use these chips. So it's a lot of confusing messages going on here, and it's all in the context of what's going on in the trade negotiations.
This is very confusing. And another thing is Trump had resisted chip sales to China before. So what do you make of this reversal now?
So we have to make the assumption here that there are no national security issues for these chips, or there's a belief that these national security issues are being overturned because the export is going to outweigh, and the benefits of exporting the AI chips outweighs any kind of national security concerns. And we kind of lean towards thinking that that could be true for a couple of reasons. One, these chips are slowed down versions of the Blackwell chips, the top AMD chips. And the second reason is the fact that the roadmaps for both Nvidia as well as AMD seem to show that they're going to have at least 3 or 4 generations still ahead of the Chinese, and maybe a 2 to 3 year lead. But that doesn't necessarily answer the question of, is this helping or hurting in terms of the overall race in AI between US versus China?
And we talked about the negotiations going on between U.S. and China on those tariffs. So what does this say, this development, what does this say about the overall U.S.-China trade relationship as it stands now?
Well, on one hand, we could say that's a cooling. The export controls have been lifted. The rare earth issues in terms of China, in terms of making access to rare earth, has also been cooling. So maybe there's some progress going on between U.S.-China trade relations. And so that's the optimistic view. The other view to look at this is maybe what's going on at this moment is that, trying to calm the markets for both ends, this could be one way to actually show that there's a little bit of give and take in these negotiations. But it's really hard to say because, as we know, both President Xi is pretty strong and President Trump is very strong in terms of their opinions and their negotiation skills.
And I know, again, we talked about the details still being worked out, but how much revenue are we talking about that this could potentially generate? And with the U.S. government getting 15%, where might that money even go if this goes through?
Well, let's take an estimate. There's potentially up to $7 to $8 billion a quarter that Nvidia can use to sell these chips, and we saw there was demand in the past. I think in AMD that could be $2 to $3 billion a quarter. So you're looking at anywhere between 10 to 20 billion in that quarter. That's 15% of 10 to 20 billion. So you're looking at 1.5 to 3 billion that could actually go back to U.S. coffers. The question is really, is there a legal way to actually put this tax on export? And I think that's what the White House is trying to confirm at the moment, to create the ability to charge fees for export licenses.
And could we see other companies trying to follow suit with what these two companies are doing? And what kind of sectors are we talking? The same sectors or perhaps beyond that?
There could be ways to do that, and I think this is what there needs to be a framework that's established. And I think what's missing right now is understanding the details behind such a framework. Is there CFIUS review for security reasons? Are there other export controls that are actually lifted? So what does that checklist look like for who can qualify? Right now, these are bespoke deals that are going to AMD and Nvidia.
I don't know if you could speak on this, Ray, but we've talked about the criticism about this deal, raising all sorts of legal and constitutional questions. So I guess the big question is, could this be challenged in court, and who would even do that?
Well, I think the parties that would challenge in court would be competitors that felt that the ability to export was a benefit, and the question as to should that be 15, should that be 20%, who gets to effectively negotiate those types of deals? I believe that actually sits in the executive function, so it'd be pretty hard to challenge, especially given the current Supreme Court as well.
And what about consumers? I mean, what does this all mean for them?
Well, at the end of the day, the question is, do chip prices go up because of this? Does chip access go up? We've seen that Nvidia and AMD are still trying to keep up with demand, and this may eventually actually raise prices as more chips are available for the export market. We also have seen some leakage as well coming through Singapore and Dubai of these chips getting into the hands of Chinese buyers as well.
Ray Wang, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Francis. Take care.